When the news of Bob Crane's murder broke, it stunned Hollywood and his loyal fans. The charming actor, known for his quick wit and infectious smile, was found brutally bludgeoned to death in his Scottsdale apartment on June 29, 1978. The crime scene was horrific and confusing. Crane's body was discovered by his co-star Victoria Ann Barry, who had gone to check on him after he missed a scheduled meeting. His head had been smashed with a heavy object, later believed to be a camera tripod, and an electrical cord was tied around his neck. The attack was violent, and investigators knew immediately that it was personal. At first, there were no signs of forced entry, which meant Crane had likely known his killer and let them in willingly. The apartment showed no signs of a robbery or struggle. Everything seemed untouched except the immediate area around the body. The police were puzzled. Crane's private life, filled with hidden secrets and dark obsessions, became the main focus of the investigation. The once beloved actor, who had entertained millions, was suddenly the center of one of the most shocking Hollywood mysteries of the decade. The media jumped on the story instantly. News headlines were brutal, painting Crane as a man living a double life. What people once admired, his charm and energy, now appeared as part of a darker personality. Tabloids focused on his private collection of intimate photos and videotapes, hinting that these habits might have led to his death. It was as if the perfect image of Colonel Hogan, the smart and clever hero from television, had been shattered overnight. As detectives started to dig into Crane's personal life, one name appeared again and again: John Henry Carpenter. Carpenter was a video equipment salesman and one of Crane's closest friends. They had bonded over their shared fascination with photography and video technology, especially the early home recording systems that were just becoming popular in the 1970s. Carpenter often helped Crane set up his equipment and was seen frequently at the actor's side in nightclubs, parties, and hotels. However, what started as a friendship seemed to turn into something darker. Police learned that Crane and Carpenter often recorded their encounters with women without their full knowledge. This discovery changed the direction of the investigation entirely. It was no longer just about a murder. It was about betrayal, obsession, and possible revenge. Detectives quickly focused on Carpenter as their main suspect. He had been staying in a nearby hotel during the time of the murder, and had even had dinner with Crane the night before he was killed. After the murder, Carpenter packed his things and left town abruptly, which raised more suspicion. When police searched his car, they found blood traces that seemed to match Crane's blood type. However, DNA testing in the 1970s was primitive and couldn't definitively prove the connection. There were other strange details too. Carpenter's behavior after the crime was suspicious. He didn't attend Crane's funeral and reportedly showed little emotion about his death. Still, the evidence wasn't strong enough. Without DNA confirmation or a clear murder weapon, the case slowly went cold. The public, meanwhile, was left to wonder, was Crane's killer his closest friend? The murder of Bob Crane forced many to look at Hollywood differently. Behind the smiles, lights, and laughter of television, there were hidden struggles that few talked about. Crane, who had been a symbol of success, had also been dealing with addiction. Not to drugs or alcohol, but to fame and intimacy. His compulsive need for attention and connection had led him into dangerous circles and questionable friendships. Many people close to Crane later admitted that he seemed to be living two lives. On one hand, he was a dedicated entertainer who loved his fans and worked hard to make them happy. On the other, he was deeply troubled by loneliness and emotional emptiness. His habits, which included recording intimate encounters, made him a target of gossip and judgment, especially after his death. Hollywood, which had once celebrated him, now distanced itself. Producers, co-stars, and even some fans refused to comment publicly, afraid of being connected to the scandal. The case became a mirror for the entertainment industry's hidden vices. People began asking hard questions. How far would someone go for fame? What happens when celebrity masks a much darker truth? In many ways, Bob Crane's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that success can sometimes hide pain, and that the spotlight can both lift and destroy. Years passed, and the murder of Bob Crane remained unsolved. The Scottsdale police tried to reopen the case multiple times, but without new technology or solid evidence, progress was slow. Carpenter, who had moved on with his life, continued to deny any involvement. For nearly 2 decades, the mystery haunted both investigators and fans. Then, in the early 1990s, DNA technology began to advance. Detectives decided to re-examine the evidence, particularly the blood samples found in Carpenter's car. It seemed like a breakthrough. For the first time, science could finally answer the question that had been hanging in the air for so long. Did the blood belong to Bob Crane? In 1992, Carpenter was officially charged with Crane's murder, and the trial began in 1994. The courtroom was filled with reporters, fans, and people from the entertainment world. It felt like Hollywood itself was on trial. The prosecution argued that Carpenter had grown jealous of Crane's success, and their friendship had turned toxic. They claimed he had killed Crane in a fit of rage after a heated argument, but the defense countered that the evidence was weak. The DNA testing from the 1970s had degraded over time, and the results were inconclusive. The supposed blood samples could not be proven to belong to Crane with 100% certainty. There was also no murder weapon, no eyewitnesses, and no clear motive that could be proven in court. In 1994, Carpenter was found not guilty. He walked out of the courtroom a free man, and the case officially went cold again. Even after Carpenter's acquittal, doubts and debates continued. Many people, including Crane's family members, remained convinced that Carpenter was guilty. Others argued that the real killer might have been someone else entirely. Perhaps one of the women in Crane's private life, or even a jealous husband seeking revenge. Investigators admitted that mistakes had been made in the original case. Evidence had been mishandled, and crucial items like fingerprints and photographs had been lost or poorly stored. By the time DNA technology had improved enough to help, much of the physical evidence had already degraded beyond use. Carpenter himself maintained his innocence until his death in 1998. In his final interviews, he insisted that he and Crane were simply friends and that he had no reason to harm him. But even as he aged, rumors never stopped following him. Every few years, new documentaries and true crime shows revisited the case, each offering different theories but never reaching a clear conclusion. Crane's family, especially his son Robert Scott Crane, continued to push for justice. Scott wrote books and appeared in interviews, defending his father's legacy and criticizing how the media portrayed him. He believed that while his father had made personal mistakes, he didn't deserve to be remembered only for scandal and tragedy. Today, Bob Crane's story remains one of Hollywood's most haunting mysteries. His murder has inspired books, podcasts, and even a film titled Autofocus, 2002, which explored his complex relationship with fame, technology, and John Carpenter. The movie reignited public interest in the case, but it also sparked controversy. Crane's family said it misrepresented him and exaggerated his flaws. Despite the debate, one thing is clear: Crane's life was full of contradictions. He was talented and ambitious, but also deeply flawed and impulsive. He loved the spotlight, yet struggled with the pressures it brought. He made people laugh, but couldn't find lasting happiness himself. The fascination with his case continues because it touches on something universal: the hidden side of human nature. People are drawn to stories where glamour and darkness collide, where success turns to tragedy, and where justice never quite finds its way. Bob Crane's story is all of that and more, a reminder of how fragile fame can be, and how the truth sometimes hides behind the brightest lights. In the end, Bob Crane's name remains tied to both laughter and mystery. His performance as Colonel Hogan still entertains millions through reruns, keeping his charm alive for new generations. But behind that smile, behind the humor that made him famous, lies a story that Hollywood will never forget. A story of a man who lived too fast, trusted the wrong people, and whose death still whispers questions that no one can answer. Bob Crane's story began as one of Hollywood's brightest, but it ended in tragedy that still haunts fans to this day. Best known as the charming star of the hit TV series Hogan's Heroes, Crane was adored by millions. But on June 29, 1978, that admiration turned into horror when news broke that he had been found brutally murdered in his Scottsdale, Arizona apartment. The crime scene was disturbing. Crane had been bludgeoned to death, and an electrical cord was tied around his neck. People couldn't believe that such a well-loved actor could meet such a violent end. Fans and friends waited for quick answers, expecting police to find the killer right away. But when investigators arrived, they found almost no useful evidence. There were no signs of forced entry, no missing valuables, and no fingerprints leading to a clear suspect. What looked like a simple murder quickly turned into one of Hollywood's darkest mysteries. As weeks turned into months and then years, every lead went cold. Nobody could say for sure who killed Bob Crane, and that silence would last for decades. But to understand what might have led to such a shocking end, we have to go back to where it all began. To the story of a boy who loved drums, laughter, and the spotlight, Bob Crane. Born Robert Edward Crane on July 13, 1928, in Stamford, Connecticut, was always drawn to performing. Even as a child, he was never shy about being in front of people. When he was just 11, he started playing the drums, an obsession that would shape the rest of his life. By junior high, he was organizing drum and bugle parades in his neighborhood. In high school, Crane joined every music group he could, the orchestra, the marching band, and even the jazz band. He became so talented that he earned a spot in the Connecticut Symphony Orchestra before he even graduated. After finishing school, Crane joined the Connecticut Army National Guard. A year later, he married his high school sweetheart, Ann Terzian. When his military service ended, Crane faced a new challenge: supporting his young family. He turned back to music, playing drums for local bands in Connecticut and New York. But he knew deep down that music was just the start. Crane dreamed of being an entertainer, not just a drummer in the background, but someone whose voice people would recognize. That dream led him to a local radio station, where he landed a job as a DJ. This step changed everything. Once Crane got behind the microphone, something clicked. His voice was energetic, funny, and full of life. He quickly became known for his quick humor and clever conversations. Listeners loved how he would mix live drumming into his shows. It made his broadcasts unique and fun. After 6 successful years in Connecticut, bigger stations started noticing him. Crane only wanted to work in one of 2 places, New York or Los Angeles. And when Los Angeles called, he jumped at the chance. His show there became an instant hit. Broadcasting live 6 days a week, he drummed along to songs, interviewed celebrities, and filled the airwaves with laughter. It was controlled chaos, but people loved it. He hosted famous guests like Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe, and Bob Hope. Soon he was known as the King of the Los Angeles airwaves. Yet, as happy as he seemed, Crane wanted more. "I always wanted to be an actor," he once said. "I don't believe in acting school. I think the only way to learn is to act." So while still hosting his radio show, Crane began performing in small theaters, perfecting his craft one role at a time. He was ambitious, hard-working, and ready for the next big leap: Hollywood. Crane's move from radio to television wasn't easy, but his determination paid off. His early work included small parts in shows like The Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He also did guest hosting for game shows and variety programs. His big break came when he appeared on The Donna Reed Show, where he played Dr. David Kelsey. The audience loved him so much that he became a regular character. Soon after, he landed the role that made him a household name: Colonel Robert Hogan in Hogan's Heroes. The show was set in a World War II prisoner of war camp. But it wasn't grim. It was a clever comedy about Allied prisoners who secretly sabotaged their German captors. Hogan's Heroes was a massive hit, reaching the top 10 in ratings during its first season. Crane became a star overnight, charming, funny, and confident. He even received an Emmy nomination. For 6 seasons, America couldn't get enough of him. But when the show ended in 1971, Crane struggled to find the same level of success again. He appeared in Disney films and toured with theater productions, but the spotlight was slowly fading. Behind the scenes, his personal life was falling apart, and his choices were about to lead him down a very dark path. Behind his bright smile and TV charm, Bob Crane was living a much more complicated life. His marriage to Ann Terzian ended after more than 20 years. Not long after, he married Patricia Olson, who had acted in Hogan's Heroes under the name Sigrid Valdis. But even this marriage didn't stop his reckless behavior. Crane had been involved in multiple affairs, some with his co-stars, and he developed a troubling obsession. He began recording his sexual encounters using cameras and videotape, often without his partner's full awareness. His friend and partner in this disturbing hobby was John Henry Carpenter, a video equipment salesman for Sony and later Akai. The two traveled together, meeting women in bars and filming their encounters. Some people said all the women knew, while others claimed they had no idea they were being recorded. As word spread, Crane's reputation began to crumble. The once beloved TV star was now whispered about for all the wrong reasons. Even Disney distanced itself from him, concerned about the negative attention. By 1978, Crane was tired. Tired of scandals, tired of bad press, and tired of Carpenter. He told friends and his son that he wanted to end the friendship and start fresh. He planned to file for divorce from Olson and turn his life around. But fate had other plans. On June 29, 1978, Bob Crane was supposed to meet his